Hi, welcome back to my channel. My name is Atifa and I am Bookish Betty. Today we're back with another video, but in a different setup. I wanted it to be cozy. I didn't want it to be so formal and rigid like my usual setup. And today we are going to be talking about all the physical books that I bought this year. If you know me, you know that I'm an ebook reader. Just because I like to read before bed, that's my usual routine. And if I read a physical book, I have to keep the lights on. So with an ebook, I put it onto like dark mode and then I just read and I fall asleep every night. So yeah, let me see how many books I have and we'll get right into it. So hardback, I have 5 hardbacks and 5 regular books. What are they called? Paperbacks. So I have a total of 10 physical books that I bought this year. Usually I try to buy physical books that I think I will really love or have a good cover. And most of the time I'm wrong because most of the time I don't actually love them. So let's just get right into it. So this is not in order, by the way. The first book I have here is 7 Days in June by Tia Williams. This is a romance novel, and I believe this is maybe the UK paperback edition. It is a romance novel about these two characters who met in high school. When they met in high school, they had a really tumultuous home life, so they couldn't really develop a healthy teenage relationship as most kids would at their age. So they spent around 7 days together and were separated abruptly. No goodbye, nothing. Fast forward many years later, I believe 10-20 years later, they're both successful in their own respective fields. They are both authors, and turns out they meet at an author convention. And from there, it kind of re-sparks that old flame that was there, and it kind of goes back between past and present timeline. So as the reader, you're also trying to uncover why they ended things abruptly 7 years ago, and how that relates to this June in the future that they're trying to spend together. 7 days in this future June. I think I gave this a 4 stars or 3.5 stars. It was good. I might read it again. I like the important themes of like trauma, parental neglect. I like there are important themes in this book. So I kind of get the hype. Moving on, we have The Midnight Library. I'm just going to touch on this quickly because I've talked about it before. This book talks about Nora, who committed suicide, and she is stuck in a kind of like, there's like a word for it. She isn't exactly in the afterlife yet where dead people go, but she's not exactly in the physical realm where living people are, so she's kind of stuck in limbo. And in limbo there is something known as the Midnight Library, and in the Midnight Library it's basically all the different variations of what your life could have been. And Nora has the opportunity to basically pick up a book, go into that life, experience that life, and if she likes it, she's actually allowed to stay in that life. But of course, as we humans are, it's in our human nature to be greedy and not appreciate what we have. So it's actually kind of funny because every life that she falls into or tries, she ends up finding a flaw in it and ends up being returned to this Midnight Library. I only got about quarter way through. It's a really quick read, but at that time when I was reading it, I found it really sad. So I'm putting it on hold and I will probably continue it probably this week, because I actually do want to know what happens and how it ends. Next, we have Conversations on Love by Natasha Lunn. And this is a nonfiction book. It is basically her having a dialogue, conversing, interviewing love experts, but love in a romantic, platonic, familial way. She explores all different types of love, including self-love. And I do think it is an important read for people of all ages. I do think it's a book that you can come back to from time to time. It's a book that you can pick up and just read a certain section if that's what you want to, because if you even look at the contents, for example, you could read about the seasons of friendship if you're having difficulties with your friendship. So I really did like this book, but again, I haven't finished it. This is the problem with me and physical books, is I'll pick it up and then I'll like completely forget about it. But so far, that book was really good. Next we have As Long as the Lemon Trees Grow by Zulfa Khattu. Again, I talked about this a lot in a previous video, but it is basically set against the backdrop of the Syrian revolution, the Assad regime. So if you actually want to pick this up, it's perfect timing because of the current updates that have been going on in Syria and the Assad regime. But this basically tells a story about Salama and a boy, Kinan. It is, I wouldn't call it a romance story, it's not like that at all, but it is a story about how Salama, a pharmacy student, had to cut her education short to become a doctor, a physician at a time of war because medical professionals are needed. And in having to face these patients every day, of course she carries with her a lot of trauma from witnessing this, but also she kind of becomes jaded. She eventually decides to leave Syria, but she has this sort of imaginary friend, or you could say it's a manifestation of her trauma, kind of telling her to stay. So it's a lot of psychological conflict in this book between her and that imaginary friend. It's a lot of conflict between her and Kinan trying to manage their relationship. A lot of difficulties between her and her sister-in-law, who is currently pregnant, and therefore she's trying to save her sister-in-law by getting them to Germany. A lot of different things, but don't worry, when you read it, it's definitely a super easy read. It's not difficult to follow the plot at all. But yeah, one of my best books of 2024, definitely. Oh, and I specifically bought this edition of this book because of the exclusive short story inside, which I have not read, but I will. So if you do decide to pick the physical copy up, just know that this version does exist. Next, let me do, no, I'll do the last paperback. So next I have The Thursday Murder Club by Richard Osman. Again, I've started reading this about 50 pages in, and then I stopped. I have no rating of the book yet so far, but The Thursday Murder Club basically follows a group of retirees in a retirement home, and they have this Thursday Murder Club where they try to solve cold cases. But eventually one of the cold cases is actually related, or a murder case has actually occurred in their retirement home. And they, the Thursday Murder Club, make an attempt to unsolve the mystery. So really good for fans of those who enjoy, what's that Selena Gomez show called? Only Murders in the Building. Also really good for those who enjoy that show, A Man on the Inside, the new Netflix show. It sounds like a good plot, but I haven't been hooked yet, so that's why I haven't picked it up again. Next, moving on to the hardcovers. The famous Vanishing Half by Brit Bennett. So I got this really cute UK hardback edition. It's purple on the inside, so that's cute. I like this cover better than the US one. That's why I wanted to buy this. The Vanishing Half is set in, I believe, like 1960s America, post-segregation, I'm assuming. And it tells a story about these twins, the Vignette twins, and they are white passing. They come from a town, Mallard, where everybody is basically super, super light skin, very white passing, but the town itself is very, very colorist. They take pride in the fact that they are white passing. And these twins kind of hate living in this small town in 1968, so they actually run away. It tells a story about them being separated. After they run away, they separate from one another. One married a black man, lives and identifies as a black woman, and the other twin married a white man, lives and identifies as a white woman. In theory, in concept, the plot seems super interesting. Themes discussed like colorism, racism, familial issues, trauma. These are all really, really, really great themes. However, each chapter was about 20 pages long. And not only was it 20 pages long, you know when they'll have like paragraphs and then there'll be like a little section break. Every time there was a section break, the narrative would change. The person being, the point of view would change. And there's so many characters, super difficult to keep track of, that you as a reader are kind of confused, like, whoa, who is this? Who are we talking about here? So because of those constant narrative changes, I actually had to DNF this book at 100 pages in. I really want to know what happens, but not at the cost of me being confused and frustrated and bored every time I pick up this book. So yeah, unfortunately, I'm selling it. Next, we have one of my favorite purchases this year, because this is the first time that I've ever bought a sort of like special edition of a book, and that is V.E. Schwab's The Invisible Life of Addie LaRue. This is a special illustrated sprayed edges hardback edition. I believe this is like one of the anniversary editions. Look how beautiful this is! And has a little bookmark in, which I've never had a book that has these bookmarks, ribbon bookmarks inside them. So that's really cute. It has these illustrations. And even in here, in the middle, there are these illustrations. This book is a story about Addie LaRue, who was born like a really, really long time ago, I believe in 1600s, 1700s. Yeah, she was born in France, 1700s, and she kind of makes a deal with the devil, you could say, to prolong her life. When she does that, she didn't know that there was a catch, because there's always a catch. And the catch in her case was that you can live forever, but I'll give you immortality, but no one's gonna remember who you are. And it's to the point where she could meet someone that day, and by the next day they would completely have forgotten who she was. And so obviously that makes for an incredibly lonely life, where no one remembers you, where you don't really have any family, any friends, nothing. You kind of live your life in isolation, and you kind of meet people, pick them up, and then they'll forget about you. So it's a really, really lonely life for Addie LaRue, until one day somebody remembers who she is. So it then will talk about why this person can remember who she is, what exactly is going on, is her curse ending, is her immortality ending, and is she going to die soon? So it's like these questions are like being asked, and I haven't finished reading this book. I'm only 30 pages in. I'm only 30 pages in, but I do want to pick it up, but I only read before bed, and I don't like reading with the lights on. So it's like, kind of counterintuitive for me to be buying these physical books, but I like looking at them on my shelf. So yeah. Last but not least, we have the final boss, you could say. The final boss, Miss Sarah J. Maas. Okay, this is a trilogy known as Crescent City. First book, House of Earth and Blood. Second book, House of Sky and Breath. And third book, House of Flame and Shadow. So I bought these used. This one is used. This one is also used, and the last one is new. I really wanted to have the hardback editions because when I read ACOTAR and I read Throne of Glass, I read them all online and through audiobook. So I've never actually owned a physical copy of a Maas book, but I really wanted to get this one. Little did I know that there's a divide in the Sarah J. Maas community, in the Sarah J. Maas multiverse. There's a divide in that people who typically are a huge fan of ACOTAR do not automatically love this. And I fall into that category of people. First of all, let me just preface this by saying I didn't read it at a really great time mentally, so that could have been a huge factor. But I don't really like urban fantasy that much. The rules kind of don't make sense to me. If there's technology, what's the need for magic? You know, I'm one of those people. So just kind of reading it and suspending that disbelief, it's confusing to me because I'm very used to medieval fantasy. I like the storyline, so I'll give you a brief synopsis of the storyline. Bryce lives with her best friend, and one day her best friend gets murdered viciously in her own home. So she is trying to investigate the murder of her best friend with Hunt Athalar. This guy, I think, this handsome young man over here. And she's trying to investigate the murder of her best friend, but of course, it is so much more deeper than that. There's so much more corruption going on. Bryce herself having ties with the Fae, but being half Fae herself, being disowned and not recognized by her own Fae father, who's a very important figure in this town. Hunt Athalar hating Bryce, but obviously it becomes a enemies to lovers story. I'm not there yet. I'm only like 50% into this book. And it's her trying to uncover the death of her best friend, but in trying to uncover the death of her best friend, it's actually much deeper. There are actually much more things going on in the city, in the town, in relation to her best friend's murder. So her and Hunt are trying to figure it out. They have to get other people involved to figure it out. I will make an attempt to read it again because, as you can see, I've already bought these beautiful hardback editions. So I have no choice but to read it, okay? I refuse to let my hard-earned coin that I bought those books, I refuse to just let them sit there and linger. So yeah, that's basically it for all the books that I bought. And yeah, this is a really quick video. I don't really know how to end it. It's too quick. So yeah, that's it for the end of my video. Let me know what you think, what physical book I should actually buy that is worth my money. I really want to buy the special illustrated edition of The Bell Jar by Sylvia Plath, but I know there's a lot of racism in that book and I know a lot of people don't actually love it. So yeah, that's it for me. Thanks for watching and I will see you guys in the next one. Bye.